After the malaise of the Monaco Grand Prix, we return to a more traditional F1 track in Montreal, but does that mean a return to more traditional F1 fantasy results? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Monday, June 3rd. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, we're going to get into a Canadian Grand Prix preview. Lots to break down in this episode. It's going to be a big one, kind of a lengthy episode, so check out the timestamps in the description below if you want to jump around in this week's episode on the YouTube or the podcast side. Would greatly recommend that if you're a little short on time. I do have some housekeeping things to get taken care of at the top of the show here. So after this episode publishes, Backup Fantasy Sports YouTube channel will officially transition to the F1 Fantasy Pole Position YouTube channel. Doesn't really matter for you guys on the YouTube side or the podcast side all that much. Just want to let you know that when the episode comes up, it won't say Backup Fantasy Sports anymore. It won't be that green logo. It'll be the F1 Fantasy Pole Position logo. And the channel will also be called F1 Fantasy Pole Position as well. So just look out for that, but just letting you know that's still going to be me on here on your screen, kind of doing the same thing, just F1 focused only on this YouTube channel. Another thing is, live stream is back. It's not going to be a deadline live stream. It's going to be a Saturday morning live stream. It's going to be about 10 a.m. UK time, which is 11 a.m. Germany time, 5 a.m. US time, but the episode will go up, will be an episode after that. It's going to break down all of Friday's practices. Hopefully we get some good data. It is my wife's birthday weekend, so she is letting me kind of do a Saturday live stream, which is great. Home for once on a qualifying day, so not going to do it on the evening of her birthday weekend, but yeah, we will be breaking down some F1 fantasy on Saturday morning. So hopefully you can join me then. I will have the schedule up on there. So just set the little alarm bell there, and that way you will know when the episode goes live. And another announcement is, starting this week for every Grand Prix, where there's kind of like 2 weeks between each Grand Prix, like not a double header, there will be a new episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position every week called Green Flag, Yellow Flag, Red Flag. Kind of a version of buy, sell, hold. I guess buy is green flag, hold is yellow flag, sell is red flag. So that's going to go up on Wednesday. Hopefully more F1 fantasy content is received quite well. Hopefully you guys like it. Let me know in the comments below which drivers you would like me to discuss in the inaugural debut episode of Green Flag, Yellow Flag, Red Flag. I've got some thoughts already kind of stumbling around in here, but yeah, any drivers you would want to discuss on the new kind of series for F1 Fantasy, let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and 5 stars, thumbs up on any of the podcast apps that you are listening in. That's it. Housekeeping done. Boring stuff done. Let's get into the Canadian Grand Prix preview here. It's the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I practiced pronouncing that. Hopefully it did not go too poorly. 4.361 kilometers around the track, 70 laps, 14 corners, 3 DRS zones, and the first Grand Prix here was in 1978. According to this configuration that's on F1.com, the first DRS detection point is for the first DRS zone. That makes sense. And the second DRS detection zone still has the second and third. So if you are within 1 second of the guy in front of you at that second DRS detection zone, you're going to have 2 helpings of DRS. So could be a lot of overtaking here. It's not traditionally kind of been up there in the calendar in overtakes. I'm going to show a graphic on that in a little bit here, but yeah, lots of DRS zones in Canada, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but very excited to get back to Montreal and kind of watch this race. Session times here, local, UK, USA, Eastern, so local and USA Eastern are going to be the same. So Friday is 1:30 p.m. for Canada, 6:30 UK time. Practice 2 is going to be at 5 p.m. local time. And then I got that wrong. That's going to be at, do some Matthew, and that's going to be at 10 p.m. UK time, 12:30 for practice 3 on Saturday, and 5:30 UK time. And then qualifying is when our lineups lock, 4 p.m. local time, 9 p.m. UK time, with the Grand Prix at 2 p.m. on Sunday and 7 p.m. for the UK. So definitely check that out this weekend. As usual, I messed up one of these time zones, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing. But what we need to know as F1 fantasy managers is qualifying is going to be 4 p.m. local time, 4 p.m. USA Eastern, and 9 p.m. UK time. You can adjust as you need around the globe. As for weather, we're going to get a traditional helping of some June Canadian weather. I am in Germany right now, and it is miserable here as well, and it looks like it's not going to be much better in Canada. 25 degrees, kind of hot, which is nice, but yeah, it looks like it's 71% chance of rain on Friday, 67% chance of rain on Saturday, and 55% chance of rain on Sunday. However, when I did look at all of these forecasts on Saturday and Sunday, it did say that the showers were going to come earlier in the day. So as of right now, Monday, June 3rd, it seems like the rain shouldn't affect qualifying and the race too much. The problem is, if it does affect Friday, we may not have a lot of data to go on from Friday, so that will be something to watch as well. So hopefully the rain can kind of just hold off until Monday, next Monday in Canada, but I'm not sure that is going to be the case. It's been raining like all week here in Germany, so hopefully it gets a lot better across the pond in Canada as the week comes closer to the Grand Prix weekend starting. Tires for the Canadian Grand Prix here, C3, C4, C5. Those are the 3 softest compounds. Nothing to really report too much on that. However, I did see a report that Pirelli is working on a C6 tire compound, possibly for street races specifically, like Monaco, to kind of degrade the tire more and kind of hopefully produce pit stops, make races more exciting. I'm not sure if that's going to come to fruition or come true anytime soon, but we will see. Apparently they are working on it, so that could be some more exciting stuff, more pit stops manufactured in F1. But for Canada, the 3 softest compounds, C3, C4, C5. Looking back at the 2023 Canadian Grand Prix here, Max kind of did what he does, or what he did in 2023. Nico Hülkenberg got second. I was looking at these results on F1.com. I actually had to go onto YouTube and watch the qualifying again to make sure that it was not a mistake, because yes, Nico Hülkenberg got his lap time in before the red flag of Oscar Piastri going into the wall in Q3. And yeah, he got second. It did not go well on Sunday, however, tumbled down the field, but it was still a pretty fun Saturday for the Haas team and Nico Hülkenberg. Fernando Alonso was 3rd, Lewis Hamilton 4th, George Russell 5th, Ocon, Norris, Sainz, Piastri, and Albon rounded up the top 10 in qualifying. And then on Sunday, it was Verstappen and Alonso 1-2. Is this the last time that Fernando Alonso really did super well in an F1 race? We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, so check out the timestamps in the description below. Lewis Hamilton came 3rd, Charles Leclerc 4th, Sainz 5th, Sergio Perez 6th. Kind of another downturn in form for Sergio Perez around mid-season, so we're going to talk about that later on in the episode as well. Alexander Albon in 7th, Ocon 8th, Lance Stroll 9th, and Valtteri Bottas in 10th. I highlighted Alexander Albon here because Williams did well at this track last year, and it sounds like they are pretty optimistic about their chances in Canada as well. Some upgrades coming, I believe, on the Williams side of the paddock, so we'll definitely be looking into that. Albon got his first points in Monaco, hopefully building on that. Some upgrades would be much needed for Williams, as they have tried to make their car more well-rounded for 2024, which is probably good in the long term, but has kind of cost them points if they have slipped down towards the back end of the midfield. But they do have points on the board finally, so they're still getting up there a little bit. But yeah, hopefully these upgrades spell more success for Alexander Albon and maybe even Logan Sargeant. But yeah, that would be quite hopeful for Logan Sargeant to get some points in Canada. This is a graphic I'm bringing back from the Monaco Grand Prix. It's from F1FantasyHQ.com. Fantastic website for like does all the written F1 fantasy content you could ever want. Adam does a great job over there. And all this data is from F1fantasytools.com, which is also a brilliant F1 fantasy website where you can track your live scoring. If you sign up for their Patreon, you can put your teams in there and they got the live scoring, you got the budget updates. It's very, very fun website to be tracking during qualifying and race day. But on the graphic here, overtakes 2022 versus 2023. Just got all the races here, how many overtakes they've got. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, Canada 35 is like right in the middle of the pack. Not too high, not too low. First year of the new regulations. But then last year in 2023, Canada all the way down second from the bottom, 46 overtakes. Monaco had 36 last year. Yeah, Canada second from the bottom. So it was Monaco with 36, Canada 46, Monza with 49, Silverstone with 50, and Baku with 50 as well in 2023. But in 2022, Canada was very similar, but in the middle of the pack, it just seemed like there were a lot less overtakes in 2022 as their 35 is about in the top 10 races there, but it's second from the bottom in 2023. So maybe despite having 3 DRS zones, we maybe shouldn't expect as many overtakes as we would think from a race like that. And F1 Big Data does a fantastic job kind of telling us what similar circuits to look out for here. So he tweeted this out over the weekend. They tweeted this out over the weekend. Similarity between circuits in his model. Canada is close to Bahrain, Shanghai, and Miami. So those are maybe the tracks we should be looking at as little breadcrumbs to tell us where we are supposed to be looking towards our team construction in F1 Fantasy. So that made me want to kind of look at a three-way clash in Canada, as we do have right now the three main constructors, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren. These are kind of the three we're all picking between each weekend. Most of us are on a Ferrari McLaren build, I believe. Let me know in the comments below if you're on an RB build. Let me know what your lineup is. Would be really interested to hear what that is like. And here are all the results from Bahrain, China, and Miami. So in Bahrain, it was a Red Bull 1-2, a Ferrari 3-4, and McLaren were 6th and 8th with Norris and Piastri. In China, it was Verstappen first, Perez third, and then Ferrari had 4th and 5th with Leclerc and Sainz, and McLaren were 2nd with Norris and 8th with Piastri. And in Miami, it was 2-4 for Red Bull with Verstappen and Perez. Leclerc was 3, Sainz was 5. Norris got the win, and Piastri was 13th. However, if you remember that race, Piastri was absolutely flying for the first 90% of that race, and then he picked up some damage battling with Carlos Sainz, had to pit, kind of ruined his race, but overall the McLarens showed great pace in that. So Bahrain was the season's first race. I think McLaren kind of missed some of their preseason updates, and you've seen what those updates have done over the last 3 races. So we can maybe throw that out there, but if it is going to be similar to these 3 tracks, Bahrain, China, and Miami in Canada this weekend, it does bring Max Verstappen back into the thinking here in F1 Fantasy. Shouldn't shy away from that. It's more of a traditional, like regular F1 track. There are some high curbs here, and we saw that Red Bull struggled with that in Monaco. So we'll need to watch that in Friday practices. Hopefully we get some dry weather so we can get some good data from this. But it sounds like it should be a 3-way fight in Canada, a 3-way clash in Canada between these 3 constructors. As of right now, I'm still leaning towards Ferrari and McLaren because you can kind of still get enough money there so you can get Max in your lineup. I have 114.5 million in my cost cap. So I am on a little bit of the lower side of the budgets these days. I know there's a lot of people kind of all the way up there, 119, 120. Some of you guys have been commenting about it in the YouTube episodes. So great job by y'all with those huge budget boosts, especially after Monaco. I know a lot of people went up 5-6 million. So great job by y'all there. But yeah, just a interesting look back. China and Miami probably more relevant than Bahrain, just with how many updates we've had over the season so far, heading into the 9th race of the season now. So I watched F1 Unchanged YouTube video, and he wasn't really talking about too many upgrades coming to the Canadian Grand Prix, at least as of whenever he published that video. I think it was just mostly Williams for upgrades that we need to watch. So between Red Bull and Ferrari and McLaren, we can kind of maybe expect what they brought to Monaco and Imola is kind of what they have. I think Spain is maybe the next big track where we'll see some upgrades. The boss of Tier B. So this is kind of what we're talking about with our 2 times DRS boost guys these days. Max and Lando are in the Tier A now. So it kind of leaves Leclerc, Perez, and Sainz as our 3 kind of budget building, but also getting some good points kind of guys here. Piastri probably deserves to be in this graphic as well, but I'm not sure if he would be like DRS boost guy over any of these 3, just depending on what we see on Friday. But for now, it's kind of just wanted to talk about Leclerc, Perez, and Sainz. So as you can see here on the graphic, Bahrain, China, Miami, just like the last graphic here, how many points they scored and their average points between these 3 races. So Leclerc scored 22, 34, 33, Perez 31, 40, and 30, and Sainz 36, 30, and 26 in those 3 races. Leclerc averaged 29.6 points per race, Perez 33.6 points per race, and Sainz 30.6. Leclerc outscored Sainz in 2 of these 3 races, not the first one in Bahrain. He outscored Perez in the last race in Miami, and that's kind of been since then. Perez has kind of taken like a little bit of a downtick in form, so it's something to watch there. I think Leclerc is clearly the boss of Tier B right now. I know a lot of you guys have Leclerc and Piastri with Ferrari and McLaren. I'm kind of wondering if we can go another weekend without Red Bull, especially they've had 2 weeks to kind of figure out what's going on. I think Helmut Marko came out and said that there's been some problems with like their simulator and the data they're seeing on the track. So it could be signs of like Red Bull cracking at the top a little bit, but I'm still a little hesitant to go all the way away from them with a more traditional track in the schedule this weekend in Canada. So I've got Leclerc, so I feel pretty good about keeping him in my squad. But if Friday's data does show us some like Red Bull back to dominance, I don't think I'll be too afraid of either going Perez and Red Bull or just going up to Max, because I have 8 million in the bank after my kind of final fix strategy did not work out so well in Monaco. But I've got plenty in the bank, so we can kind of move around a lot. But who is your favorite boss of Tier B over here? Leclerc, Perez, or Sainz? Let me know in the comments below. As we're talking about Sergio Perez, he had the highest points per race among the 3 races we were talking about just there in Bahrain, China, and Miami. However, it has not gone too well for him in the last 3 races. So on the graphic here, I have his points per race, points per million, average quality position, and average race position from the first 5 races of the season and the last 3 races of this season. So the first 5 races of the season, Checo averaged 31.4 points. And in the last 3, he's averaged 7 points per race. So huge downtick there. That is including the DNF. So I understand that kind of hampers it a lot, but it still counts all the same. Points per million, first 5 races, Sergio Perez had 1.46 points per million, and now he's at 0.3 points per million. Average qualifying position for the first 5 races was 3rd. Last 3 races has been 11th. He's been knocked out in Q3 twice in the last 3 races, and average race position 2.8 in the first 5 races and 10.6 over the last 3. So this is kind of what we've seen from Sergio over the last couple of seasons with these regulations. He seems to kind of start the season off pretty strong, and then the car just gets away from him in the like last 2/3 of the season. It's like a couple of years ago or last year, we're like, oh, could Sergio even challenge Max? And he just fell off a cliff. And last year, the Red Bull was so dominant that it didn't really matter in F1 Fantasy. It still made Checo a great option because you could kind of bank on him getting 5, 6, 7 overtakes with 5, 6, 7 positions gained. And it all usually worked out for us in F1 Fantasy. However, this year with McLaren looking a lot stronger, Ferrari's battling for the Constructor Championship after Checo has kind of not throwing it away, but just struggling here in the second third of the season. And yeah, overall, Checo's not getting the easy passes on McLaren and Ferrari, and even like a George Russell can like hold his own, but we'll see how it's going to go in Canada. But for right now, I don't feel that confident in Sergio Perez. If you have him in your team, I would be looking to get away from him. I would definitely say that he's about to be mentioned in the first episode of Green Flag, Yellow Flag, Red Flag that's coming out on Wednesday. So definitely stay tuned for that. And also let me know which drivers you'd want me to kind of discuss, buy, sell, hold in the comments below. But yeah, for now, Sergio Perez is not looking great for our F1 fantasy teams. Another guy that a lot of people are talking about, I'm thinking about him, but it's been a down year for Fernando Alonso for sure. Here are his stats, very similar to Sergio Perez. I have his 2024 stats and his 2023 stats here: points per race, points per million, average qualifying position, and average race position. Aston Martin has clearly taken a step back this season. They are nowhere near challenging the top four. They're more honestly going to be battling Visa Cash App RB, I think, for fifth in the Constructors Championship. So they got to like watch out for those guys as the season moves along. So in 2023, Alonso averaged 18.3 points per race. In 2024, he's at 9.6. So he's almost halved his points per race in 2024. Points per million, this one is a little bit skewed here. 1.8 points per million versus 0.6 points per million. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2023. Aston Martin was drastically underpriced, and it kind of skewed his numbers at the beginning of the season, but he still had great F1 fantasy results. Average qualifying position in 2023 was 7th. He's down to 9.8 this year. And average race position was 6.9 in 2023, and he's at 9.2. And that 6.9 is even with like a string of podiums in the first half of the season. So Aston Martin really fell off in the second half of the season, and they have not started 2024 strong at all. They brought some upgrades. They still don't seem to have a handle on them. It seems like there's something going on at the home base that's not correlating to the track. I've heard a lot of this conspiracy that the Mercedes wind tunnel isn't producing the results in the tunnel that it is on the track, and Aston Martin has that same wind tunnel. So we'll see how that goes. I think Aston Martin's supposed to get a new wind tunnel at some point during the year, so we'll see if they can have a late season bounce. But yeah, it's not going all that well for Aston Martin. And Alonso is kind of becoming a trendy pick in F1 fantasy just because he's like, if you're like me, 114.5 million, you've got this money here that you can like, you've got 4 back markers. I'm just like looking at my squad here in the left side of the monitor, and I've got 8.4 million in the bank, and I kind of want to spend it. I just don't know how. I mean, I could get up from Charles to Max. That kind of does the job with the 8.4 million, or going up from Ferrari to Red Bull or McLaren to Red Bull. Like that would spend it as well. But it's a giant hole there. I can get up from one of the back markers into a Fernando Alonso. The problem is he's just not really got the form that you'd want to be spending on like a $17 million asset in F1 fantasy. So this is another guy that I could definitely see being on green flag, yellow flag, red flag on Wednesday morning. Let me know if you guys agree. Should we discuss Fernando Alonso as a buy, sell, or hold a little bit more in the debut episode of green flag, yellow flag, red flag? Team selection time for the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. 5 days, 14 hours. It's Monday, June 3rd. So anything else that comes out over the week, I will be sure to update on X, where you can follow me at UNFPL. Another housekeeping thing, I'm going to change my X handle to F1 UNFPL. That way, it's a lot easier for you guys to find me when you just type in F1 on X. But here is the squad right now. Like I mentioned before, I left 8.4 million in the bank in Monaco because I was thinking that like, oh, I could do Charles Leclerc to Max Verstappen if Max pulls it out, and that would be easy peasy. But it was not meant to be. But happy for the Monegasque driver to come in and get the W that weekend, break the curse. So 8.4 million. What I was talking about earlier with Fernando Alonso. Let's change this here to value. So it would give me 0.9 in the bank. If Aston Martin kind of looks all right. This seems like the easy move for my team. And then roll a transfer. I haven't been able to roll a transfer in a while, been making a lot of changes to the team, kind of playing back marker roulette. It did not go well. I'm sure if you were on X at all during the Monaco Grand Prix, you saw how poorly it went with the Haas double DNF. We talked about it in last week's Monaco Grand Prix review episode. So yeah, Fernando Alonso, that would be the easy move if Aston Martin show any signs of life. However, I don't want to like totally tilt and just get off of Haas because they had one bad weekend. Like in general, they've had pretty solid results. I know K-Mag has been kind of a like wrecking ball through the grid this season, but he's still gone up about, started at like 6.2. So he's up 2.7 on the season, I believe. Hulkenberg has been doing pretty well as well, getting into qualifying and kind of sticking it in the top 10 a little bit for Haas. So great job by them throughout the 2024 season. Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda. I am starting to like sour a little bit on Zhou Guanyu. I think Valtteri Bottas is kind of starting to take control of that garage and feels like the better driver. He's got momentum on his side. He's had some positive results here. Italy was a little bit rough, but 10 points in Miami, 8 points in Monaco. I expect him to do okay in Canada as well. So I'm tempted to go over there. 8.3 in the bank can also get me up to Red Bull, and then that would leave me 5 million here. So if Red Bull looks strong and Aston Martin looks strong, or Lance Stroll looks all right, it's quite an easy move for me to go from Red Bull or McLaren to Red Bull, and then Kevin Magnussen to Lance Stroll, leaves me 0.7 in the bank. However, no McLaren does not feel good. I mean, I'm wearing my McLaren shirt today, and yeah, I would not want to go into a race without McLaren, but that is what it would look like. Not super appealing there, obviously, but yeah, I'm thinking I don't think I can get up to. Yeah, I'd have to make some cuts here in the back marker squad. So if I took out Yuki, I would also be able to get Oscar, and then I can't even get Logan. Logan's 5.8. So I'm one away from getting to this Leclerc Piastri build that's been very popular over the last couple of weeks. That would mean a wild card for me because I'd have to use a third transfer to bring down Nico or Valtteri to like a Zhou Guanyu or something like that. I mean, if I just did Joe, I could do Oscar and Logan in 2 moves, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I don't really love having Zhou Guanyu and Logan Sargent in my team, but this would get me to the very popular Charles Oscar McLaren Ferrari build. No Red Bull again. Doesn't make me feel great, but with their form, these are the 2 hottest teams in F1 right now, Ferrari and McLaren. They are vibes through the roof. Checo's not doing all that well, so I do expect McLaren and Ferrari to be the 2 of the top 3 highest scoring constructors. I kind of want to say that they would be the top 2 if Checo continues to struggle, as we can go see here. I mean, Red Bull, they get the pit stop points, which helps a lot. But in general, 61 points, 85 points. That's a sprint weekend, but 61 points in Italy versus McLaren, who had 64, and Ferrari, who had 51. So, yeah, it's a little tough with the constructors. Red Bull, if you don't want to be tied to Checo in any way this weekend, I would stay clear of the Red Bull as your constructor. But so this is how I would get to a Charles Oscar lineup with Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargent, and Nico Hulkenberg. I still like Hulkenberg. Solid F1 fantasy asset. Let me know in the comments below, are you more of a Charles Oscar person, or should I go down to like a Fernando and raise some of these back markers? Or do you think Red Bull is going to bounce back this weekend in Canada? It's been a little bit of a struggle for them in recent weeks. So we will see if they can kind of bounce back in Canada. But with Checo's form not looking so hot, there's the vibes in the Red Bull camp are not great right now. So it does make me feel like the McLaren and Ferrari constructor duo is a strong way to go in F1 fantasy. And I'm not sure if we need to get off of them. I know Red Bull could get more points and kind of score more, but it's for the more balanced of the squad, it might be a better way just to go with McLaren and Ferrari. One final reminder of the lineup block here. Saturday, June 8th is going to be 4 p.m. local time, 4 p.m. USA Eastern, at 9 p.m. UK time. And one other reminder for the green flag, yellow flag, red flag show that's coming out on Wednesday. Let me know in the comments below which drivers you want me to discuss. And the Saturday live stream, which is going to be at 10 a.m. UK time. I have not put that on the graphic yet, but I will for Wednesday's episode. And yeah, let's just check out. Look at this. Look how busy June is going to be. We got Canada, then we got Spain, then we got Austria. So lots of F1 fantasy content coming out this month from the F1 Fantasy Pole Position YouTube channel and podcast. So definitely like and subscribe to the channel and the podcast wherever you listen, wherever you are, or you're watching on YouTube. So yeah, like and subscribe there. But yeah, wherever you are listening on the podcast side, it's going to be a busy week. This is one of 3 episodes of F1 fantasy content that will be coming out of this YouTube channel and podcast. So make sure you stick around for the rest of the week. But thanks for watching this Canadian Grand Prix preview. And thanks for listening. And I will talk to you next time.